In the headlines, Korea's main opposition party launches a sit-in on Tuesday in protest of the ruling party's refusal to include victims' families in negotiating a controversial bill on the April ferry disaster. Korea moves to give startups and small businesses better access to funds by easing the government's grip over financial institutions. And U.S. President Barack Obama authorizes reconnaissance flights over Syria as ISIS militants continue to gain ground in the country. Hello and welcome to Arirang News, live from Seoul. I am Kang Chery. We've been talking a lot about political deadlock here in Korea over a bill on the ferry disaster investigation. And here's a new development of the day. Opposition lawmakers have launched a sit-in boycotting all legislation until bereaved families get more say regarding this probe. Connie Kim tells us more.
Opposition lawmakers have occupied the National Assembly building, blocking all parliamentary proceedings to press their demand that the ruling party let the victims' families take part in setting up an investigation into the ferry sinking. Following the ruling party's rejection one day earlier to hold three-way talks with the families, lawmakers of the New Politics Alliance for Democracy earlier on Tuesday demonstrated outside the presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae, asking President Park Geun-hye to help resolve the deadlock. They joined dozens of members of bereaved families who have been camped out there since Friday.
We will fight against the ruling Saenuri party and the president until they respond to the requests of the victims' families who want to uncover the real causes of the sinking.
The protesters are calling on the ruling party to make yet another concession after the families rejected bipartisan compromise deals twice on the grounds that their voices were not fully reflected in how a probe into the accident will be carried out. The ruling party lashed back at the opposition party, accusing them of abandoning democratic principles and urging them to immediately return to the National Assembly. The Saenuri party said they will not agree on tripartite negotiations, but will seek to talk to the victims' relatives separately. The months-long political deadlock has suspended all legislative proceedings, including bills aimed at revitalizing the economy and ending corruption, as well as an annual parliamentary audit that was scheduled for this Tuesday. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And with what's happening at the National Assembly, or rather not happening there, meaning exercising their legislative power and going over some other bills, a number of key bills aimed at revitalizing the Korean economy are collecting dust. It's a situation that's putting Finance Minister Cheong Wa on edge. Son Jung-in tells us more.
Standing alongside key policymakers on Tuesday morning, Deputy Prime Minister Cheong Wa sounded the alarm about the state of the Korean economy and called out lawmakers for their inability to pass a number of key bills aimed at reviving it.
The pulse of our economy is weakening. If those bills related to the livelihoods of the people do not pass during this session, and if we fail to stoke the embers of economic recovery, the economy could go off the tracks and we would face difficulties in turning it around.
While Che said he understands the importance of the so-called Seoul ferry bill, he also said that 9 economic bills which have been labeled as urgent need to be passed as soon as possible. Che also pointed out that at least 30 other pending bills need attention as well, all intended to stabilize people's livelihoods. The finance minister asked that lawmakers show leadership moving forward. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Korea's financial sector is about to get a facelift with hopes of boosting President Park Geun-hye's creative economy drive. This plan gives startups and small mid-sized companies better access to funds by easing the government's grip over financial institutions. Choo-san has the details.
As of June of this year, 73% of corporate loans were made to small and mid-sized businesses, a 10 percentage point drop from the end of 2009. The financial sector, specifically those employed by financial institutions, are often reluctant to take a risk with startups and SMEs as they face sanctions if the borrower becomes insolvent. Reporting to President Park Geun-hye at our economic advisors meeting Tuesday, the state-run Financial Services Commission said it would lift more than 90% of such sanctions. That means, in the case of insolvency, employees will not be deprived of a promotion or bonuses so long as there are no procedural failures. The financial regulator will instead strengthen sanctions on the institutions. To further encourage financial support for the president's envisioned creative economy, which aims to converge ICT, culture, and other areas, the FSC talked about offering incentives to banks that support innovation and technology-based firms. The government also plans to set up a technology-valued investment fund totaling $295 million that will be used as venture capital and more than double another fund that buys a tech firm's intellectual property or shares to guarantee a return on its investments. President Park urged authorities to ensure enough low-interest loans are made available for businesses whose creativity and innovative technology are appreciated. Many financial insiders welcomed the government's sanction reforms, but there were some concerned about how assessing the bank's innovation for incentives could limit their autonomy and push them toward insolvency. 최유선, Arirang News.
And Korean households may need some help as well as they sink deeper and deeper into debt. New data from the Bank of Korea shows credit purchases and loans by households hit a fresh high in the second quarter of this year, totaling just over $1 trillion. The amount of household credit increased by 6% on year, surpassing the growth of nominal GDP. This means a heavier burden on households when they pay off their mortgage loans, which in turn could worsen already sluggish domestic consumption in the country. Korea's household debt has risen for 5 straight quarters. Daily trading volume on the Korean bourses rose to an average of 6.4 trillion won, or about $6.3 billion this month, up about 40% from the end of last year. Individual investors' deposits at brokerage houses also surged by about $2 billion during that period. And the rise in this turnover was due partly to U.S. investors who increased their holdings in South Korean equities by about $1.4 billion last month. Korea's corporate culture is uniquely influenced by Confucianism, not unlike Korean society itself, actually. Employees are used to taking orders while questioning seniors or expressing bold new ideas is often frowned upon. But local IT companies in Korea are apparently taking steps to break status quo and promote creativity. Yudian tells us more.
Korean IT companies are creating a more casual work environment to promote creativity. Daum Communications, which is set to merge with Korea's largest messenger application company, Kakao Corporation, says it will have its 1,600 workers refer to each other with English names by October. It's intended to eliminate the hierarchy that's standard in Korean culture, where employees are socially obligated to address each other by their position and seniority instead of by their first names like in the West. Daum believes the change will allow young staffers to more freely express themselves and enhance communication and cooperation in the process. Naver Corporation took a step in the same direction recently when it said that its employees will stop referring to each other by their titles to create a less formal work environment. Could the seemingly minor changes bring about real changes to Korea's innovation potential? A recent innovation index ranked Korea 16th out of 77 countries, higher than Japan or China. But when it came to the so-called tolerance index, which measures how much a society tolerates different values and thoughts, Korea was ranked near the bottom at 62.
If we look at our Confucianist culture, we were taught that there is a right answer to everything. We're never taught to look for new answers. To foster creativity, we need to learn that there isn't just one correct answer to everything, and understand there could be multiple answers.
With Korea's rigid and hierarchical corporate culture being blamed for stifling creativity, the IT companies are trying to break it down, one English name at a time. Yurian, Arirang News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Kang Chery for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on Arirang TV.
Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva on Thursday, finding ways to. Record downpours leading up to Monday took lives and dealt damage to Korea's southeastern Gyeongsang-namdo province. At least 13 are dead or missing. Connie Lee has more.
In Changwon, southeast Korea, a city bus is swept away in flash floods caused by heavy rain. Caught in the fast-moving currents, the bus tips onto its side, and in an instant, it disappears, submerged under the rushing water. At least one person was killed in this incident. This is just one of the unfortunate effects of the record rain that drenched southeastern Korea on Monday. Measuring up to 130 millimeters per hour, the torrential rains hit Korea's port city of Busan and nearby regions in Gyeongsang-namdo province, causing landslides, flooding cars and houses, and halting rail services and flights in and out of Gimhae Airport. Officials from the National Emergency Management say at least 13 people have been killed or have gone missing. On Tuesday morning, police continued the search for the missing, with fears that the bodies could have been swept into the nearby ocean. For those confirmed dead, some drowned inside their cars that were stuck in a flooded underground road, while others were swept away by floodwaters. A 65-kilowatt nuclear power plant was also manually shut down for the first time after rain began to seep into the facility. Officials say the Kori plant will resume operations after inspections deem it safe. Within 3 hours, more than 240 millimeters of rain fell in Changwon, Busan, and other surrounding cities. Weather officials say showers are expected this week in central and eastern parts of Korea, with the monsoon season lingering until mid-September. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States are reviewing the feasibility of holding a joint foreign and defense minister meeting in Washington in late October following an agreement reached during summit talks between the two countries' leaders in April. Officials say that should the meeting go ahead, both countries will discuss the timing of the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul, as well as their combined operation capability against North Korea. South Korea and the U.S. are in the middle of conducting their annual joint military drills, and of course, North Korea is not exactly happy about it. North Korea's deputy ambassador to the United Nations says Pyongyang might consider unleashing a powerful counterstrike. Shin Se-min has more.
North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UN Lee Tong-il says Pyongyang is ready to enhance its countermeasures to the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington.
The DPRK is close to the use of nuclear weapons. They are to take nuclear preemptive strike with all different means of power, including nuclear weapons.
The North Korean envoy also expressed his frustration with the UN Security Council after it failed to acknowledge Pyongyang's request for an emergency meeting in response to the South Korea-US drills. The ambassador said the UN's inaction sends the wrong message to the international community, and the Security Council is encouraging the US to continue its provocative and dangerous joint military exercises against the North. The North Korean official also showed a slightly softer side.
In all these proposals are reflected the principled position of the DPRK on easing of the tension and bringing the national unity.
North Korea has been heavily critical of the joint South Korea-US exercises since they kicked off on August 18th. Earlier this month, Lee said the drills, which mobilized tens of thousands of South Korean and US troops, were the root cause of the prolonged tension on the Korean peninsula. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
But there is at least one area in which the two Koreas are showing signs of cooperation. The Asian Games set to take place in South Korea's Incheon. North Korea said it would send a 273-member delegation to this event. And today, the two Koreas started discussing related details. South Korea's unification ministry says it sent a 2-page letter to North Korea through the truce village of Panmunjom. A ministry official says the letter did not contain a direct offer to provide financial support for the athletes, but added that Seoul will give full support in making sure the athletes from North Korea do not experience any inconveniences during their time here. Russia's foreign minister has dismissed speculation that North Korean leader Kim Jongun is planning to travel to Russia, that is, soon for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a press briefing Monday, Minister Sergei Lavrov said the reports out of South Korea were categorically not true. This, as a media outlet in Seoul reported that Kim Jongun was planning a trip to Moscow in late August or early September, a move aimed at countering Chinese President Xi Jinping, who came to South Korea's Seoul last month before and without visiting Pyongyang. U.S. President Barack Obama approved air surveillance flights of Islamic State militants in Syria, paving the way for possible military attacks on ISIS bases in the region. And for more, Paul E. is joining us from the news center as always. Paul, Damascus has had a shaky relationship with the West, to say the least. What's prompted this change of heart?
Well, the move comes just a day after Islamic militants seized control of a key air base in the north of the country. The government has said it's ready to work with the international community to fight off Islamic State forces, but that offer came with a caveat, one that will likely limit U.S. military action in the heart of Syria. Our Kwon So-ah has this story.
U.S. military action against Islamic State militants in Syria is a possibility in the near future, as President Barack Obama has authorized surveillance flights over militant targets in Syria. A senior U.S. official says Obama made the decision over the weekend, and according to defense officials on Monday, the Pentagon was preparing to dispatch manned and unmanned aircraft, including drones and spy planes. Earlier, Syria's foreign minister said his country welcomes any international help, including from the U.S., in fighting Islamic State militants.
We are ready to cooperate and coordinate with regional countries and the international community in fighting terrorism following the resolutions of the Security Council. We welcome everybody.
The offer was not unconditional, though. Mualim warned that any U.S. airstrikes must be coordinated with Damascus and that anything else would be considered an aggression. While the surveillance flights are for gathering intelligence on the Islamic State group, they could become precursors for an expansion of airstrikes in Syria, in addition to those that began in Iraq earlier this month. Also on Monday, the UN condemned crimes committed by IS militants in Iraq.
Such cold-blooded, systematic and intentional killing of civilians, after singling them out for their religious affiliation, may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
The UN said there was substantial evidence of widespread rights violations such as targeted killings, abductions, sexual abuse, slavery, and the besieging of specific communities. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The presidents of Ukraine and Russia have arrived in Belarus to participate in a global summit as the military conflict in eastern Ukraine rages on. And Paul, of course, all eyes are on these two leaders and whether they will actually sit down for face-to-face talks.
Well, both leaders have met just once in the past few months, and though the world is waiting to see if this meeting will take place on the sidelines of the summit, many are wondering whether it will even make a difference. With clashes escalating between government forces and pro-Russian separatists, hopes for peace are quickly fading. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are in Belarus for talks Tuesday. The leaders are taking part in a summit of the Russia-led customs union alongside representatives from the European Union. The two briefly met in June. Since then, Ukrainian forces have gained the upper hand against pro-Russian rebels fighting for control over an area in eastern Ukraine. Ukraine said Monday its security services had captured 10 Russian servicemen in the area and also clashed with 10 tanks and 2 armored personal carriers from Russia. Ukraine has accused Moscow of sending its troops into the country, a claim the Kremlin denies. Over 2,000 people have died in fighting since Russia annexed Crimea in March. In a separate development, Poroshenko dissolved parliament on Monday and announced elections for October 26th. The president said that many of the current MPs were supporters of ousted President Viktor Yanukovych and added that the majority of Ukrainians want a new parliament. Kim Jongun, Arirang News.
And turning to Los Angeles, and my favorite story of the day, actually, the 66th Emmys Awards celebrated the best in TV entertainment and broadcasting. Paul, I can't even speak right now. It looks like the iconic drama Breaking Bad, my favorite, has swept the Emmys again.
That's right. Breaking Bad was honored at the Primetime Emmy Awards on Monday as the best drama series on U.S. television. Creator Vince Gilligan accepted the Emmy statuette for TV's highest honor, giving most of the credit to his cast and crew. It marks the second consecutive year that the AMC cable network show has won the title for Outstanding Drama. Bryan Cranston, who played the teacher-turned-drug kingpin Walter White, won Best Actor in a Drama, while co-stars Aaron Paul and Anna Gunn each won for their supporting roles.
It was very hard when it first ended, and that felt more bittersweet. I think now the time has gone by. It just feels like how lucky we are that we keep having these chances to celebrate and see each other. So.
Modern Family also came out on top at the Emmys. The ABC show won Best Comedic Series for the 5th straight year, tying only with the NBC sitcom Frasier for the most comedy victories.
And finally, Paul, the U.S. retail giant Amazon has bought Twitch, a video game streaming website, in a deal worth nearly $1 billion. Amazon has been pretty aggressive in terms of branching out from its roots as an online bookseller. What does the company hope to gain from this acquisition?
Well, analysts say it's all part of Amazon's plan to expand its rapidly growing media empire, and they're hoping that Twitch will help them corner this booming market that's attracting people who not only like to play video games, but enjoy watching others compete in the virtual arena as well, something that Korea's esports industry has been pushing for the last decade. Amazon announced on Tuesday that it would buy Twitch for $970 million in cash, marking one of the biggest acquisitions for the company. The takeover came as a shock to many in the tech industry, as Google had been reportedly holding talks with Twitch earlier this year for a possible buyout. In a statement, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos said broadcasting and watching gameplay had become a global phenomenon. Launched in 2011, Twitch has become the de facto video game streaming platform, with more than 55 million unique users logging on last month. The deal, which is expected to be finalized in the second half of this year, will likely place Amazon in a better position to compete against rival streaming services, YouTube and Netflix. Charity?
All right, thank you very much for those stories, and we'll see you back here in just about 2 hours.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather updates. Now getting straight to it, at the moment, due to instability in the atmosphere, some inland regions are receiving sporadic showers. And just when we thought we are done, more rainfall is in store through tomorrow. 5 to 40 millimeters is expected nationwide, and this may be accompanied by strong winds and thunder. Now, these numbers don't seem like much, but keep in mind that yesterday's heavy downpours have weakened ground over in the southern coastal regions. Now, showers will clear up by tomorrow evening, and overall, it looks to be a cloudy day. On to Wednesday's readings. Seoul soars to 31, Daegu and Gwangju to 28. On to other places. Jeju tops out at 26 degrees, Dokdo and Kumgang at 23. That'll do it for now, and we leave you with the international weather.
right, and that will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching, and I will see you back here with my partner Sean Lim for Primetime News. See you then.